Hello, everybody, and welcome to A2I Dyslexia live show. We are so glad that you can join us this evening. We're in London, and it is evening, so I can actually use the word this evening. If you are watching us from anywhere around the world, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you may be. We're very happy that you can join us today on All Things Dyslexia. Today's show will be so amazing, and I talk about this every week. I normally use the word phenomenal, and I think it's been my middle name now. So we've got the amazing Antoine Allen, who is Good Morning Britain presenter, who will be talking to us about his journey with dyslexia. Today's show is titled The Gift of Dyslexia because it is actually phenomenal, and I will use that word again, to have Antoine on this show. And the reason why I say that, I've been following him for a couple of years now on LinkedIn. And when he actually tweeted that he's got dyslexia, I was happy, yes. I was jumping with joy because I thought, oh, there's a black male who's working in broadcasting, who's got dyslexia and who is happy to talk about this condition. So I think it was so great. And when I contacted him and he said, yes, I will do this, I'll come live on the show to talk about my journey with dyslexia. So I just want to say a great, amazing, wonderful welcome to Antoine Allen, who is joining us today from, I think it's in London, and if I'm wrong, he'll correct me where he's actually talking from today. Now, the amazing thing is technology can get us so far and, to wherever we want to be, really. And I just want to say good evening, Antoine, and welcome to A2I Dyslexia live show. It's a privilege to have you on the show today. Yes, here you are. Yes. Can you hear us? Yeah, I can hear you, but I think the sound is slightly, that's it, there you go. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you fine. Thanks for having me on the show.
Wonderful. It is such a great honor to have you on the show today. And I know we were talking earlier, and I was really excited that you said, yes, you will come on it, because we want to talk to you about your journey with dyslexia and how other people can kind of take a leaf out of your book and take that great sort of jump, or whatever the word might be, to go and fulfill their career, particularly journalism and broadcast. Many people want to get into this industry, but how difficult is it for them? And you've done it, and you've done it with having the condition dyslexia. And please, welcome to A2I Dyslexia Live Show. Just introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit more about who you are and why today's show is going to be brilliant. I think it will be.
Well, I hope I live up to everyone's expectations. So I'm Antoine Allen. I'm a Good Morning Britain news reader, specifically for the London region. I'm a reporter for ITV London and generally a presenter of events and documentaries. I went to King's College London to study war studies. After that, I did some journalism qualifications. So it's been a different journey to probably what most reporters or journalists go through. I've done lots of different things in my life, but it's enabled me to have both experiences that I've enjoyed. I've seen the world and been around the world, and I've experienced and grown knowledge and made mistakes and learned from those mistakes, and essentially been able to overcome the dyslexia that I was diagnosed with when I went to university. So throughout my time in school, I wasn't diagnosed as dyslexic. So I just had to kind of get on with it, just understanding that maybe I was different to other people. Things were a little bit more difficult for myself, but it wasn't actually diagnosed until I went to university. But in terms of me as a person, I'm just a regular guy. So despite the very complimentary introduction, I'm still just a regular person. And I have days where I'm fairly good and my work goes really smooth, and the other days where I'd say the dyslexia kicks in to an extent and it makes it a little bit more difficult. But life itself is like a race. It doesn't matter how high those hurdles are, you have to keep going. Sometimes you have to run a bit faster, sometimes you have to jump a little bit higher. But if you're focused on your goal and you're patient in the time it's going to take you to get to your goals, then you end up just riding out the up days and the down days, and you just get to a level playing field where actually you're moving forward and you're happy with that pace, and you're not putting too much pressure on yourself, and you're not giving yourself too many excuses as to why it's okay for you to stop, because your goal is to keep pushing forward and to reach whatever you want to do in life, whether it's to be on TV or to simply own a business or to be a nurse or a doctor or a teacher, whatever it is you want to do, you can always find a way to make that happen. It might not be as easy a journey as other people. It might not be as quick as other people, but in the end, it's only you that lives your life. So it's a case that you have to do things at your own pace, and you have to set your own goals, and you have to find your own way of achieving those goals. And hopefully places like this, organizations like yours, and videos like this can help people find their path, or at least get the energy to be able to push forward a little bit harder, knowing that there's other people like them who've achieved things, or are trying to achieve things, or are trying to move forward. So despite them feeling like it can be quite lonely in that dark cave of dyslexia sometimes when you're struggling to do things, you'll eventually find processes that will help you, and people that will help you, and maybe some role models that will inspire you. And whatever you do in life, you just have to, like I said before, just keep finding your own path to push forward on.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that introduction. That's really, really amazing. I'm just going to dive into the first question now. Tell me a little bit about growing up with dyslexia, coming from a BME background. When you were growing up, obviously you didn't know you had dyslexia, but you knew it was difficult for you to read, write, spell, memory retention, all the things that come with dyslexia. What was it like for you at school? Because first of all, where are you joining us from? Are you in London?
So I'm in London right now. I'm originally from Northampton. So probably my whole life, I've had really bad handwriting. And my mum used to always try and get me to improve my handwriting, which kind of reflected also into my spelling ability, which wasn't too bad, but just in terms of my level of ability, it wasn't to the level that it should have been for the capabilities that I had. In terms of being from a BME background, the school I went to diagnosed someone else as being dyslexic who isn't Black and isn't from a BME background. So it meant that there were processes for people to be diagnosed, but in terms of myself, I wasn't one of those people that was diagnosed, despite probably having some of the traits of a standard dyslexic person, but I wasn't diagnosed for whatever reason. It could have been like some of the statistics show that Black men are underdiagnosed in some cases, depending on where you live in the world, or it simply was a case that people saw that I had ability, and maybe they just thought that actually that's enough to carry them through, and they just didn't think to take that extra step of asking me the necessary questions or making me do the necessary tests. In terms of it impacting my life, whenever you sit an exam, they used to always say to you, make sure you read the question twice so you don't make a mistake. And they'd always give you an anecdote, that one person that misread the question. And when you're, especially in the boys' school, you're not really listening. So you never expect you to be that person. But it did happen to me. When I sat one of my A-levels, I misread one of the questions. And it meant that the question was asking the question was asking before 1848, and I wrote after 1848. And it wasn't until probably 15 minutes left of the question I sat back and I actually thought, this might not be correct, reread the question, and then I had 15 minutes to try and write a whole essay. So it is what it is. It impacted my grade. I resat that, and when I resat it, I got 90 out of 90. So sometimes it's those little things of you checking again can impact what you do. And it happened to me recently at work as well. So it's just a case where you have to constantly be aware of the difficulties that you have and not allow them to overshadow all of the success you have and all of the talent that you have. So you just have to be more thorough. So in terms of just being at school, I wasn't someone who overly enjoyed reading. It wasn't a case that I disliked reading. It was just simply that it just took me a while to get through a book. I'd lose concentration and I wouldn't really remember what I just read. So I always preferred watching documentaries or listening to people talk. So then in terms of actually me, myself, often in the classroom, in order to keep people aware, it's a case that teachers would get different children to read a sentence or to read a paragraph whilst they're going around to make sure everybody feels involved. Now, if you're dyslexic and you have to read in front of your peers, it's not a fun experience. So there were cases whereby the teacher would say, Antoine, it's your turn. And I'd be fearful at that moment in terms of sweating and somewhat nervous that, oh, now it's my time to read out loud. I could feel my heartbeat in my chest. everything was silent because it was silent. It's not like you imagine the silence because everybody's waiting for you to read, and it's never as bad as you think it is. But at the same point, it's still a struggle for you. But I was diagnosed, so I didn't know why it was a struggle. But then you get on with it and you move on with life, and then you pass tests and you do okay in exams. So you think, oh well, maybe it's just a case that this isn't a thing that I'm good at. And then eventually you go to university, and then they say actually you should probably go for a test, and you realize actually there's more to what's happening to you than simply you're just not a confident reader, or you're not someone who enjoys reading as such. But in the same point, you can eventually find the books that you enjoy, and you can find things that you like to read. So I watch a lot of anime, which is Japanese animation, and all of that's in Japanese. I don't speak Japanese, so you have to read the subtitles. So I read the subtitles, but a lot of that reading is in my head. So in terms of, I like to give people actionable advice. As soon as you can, just start reading out loud, just by yourself when you're reading the book. It'll take you a lot longer to read the book, but just read out loud just so you can get into a practice of understanding word patterns and hearing your own voice and being more confident in hearing your own voice. And eventually it gets a little bit easier. For the most part, in terms of my career, most of what I do isn't scripted. So the only real times that I read is when I'm reading the news, or if I am writing a script for the report, so I have to read it in order to do the voiceover. But during the report itself, when I do interviews, I don't have notes. I just think of what I'm going to say in my head, and then from there, I'm listening to whatever the person's going to say. Or I'm doing a piece to camera, then I would have practiced it a good few times, and then eventually we just record. But then every so often, you just make a mistake simply because you're human, and you have to always understand that you're human. So you can make mistakes sometimes, and it's a little bit harder in the media simply because your mistakes are recorded and people will tweet you. Sometimes they'll be supportive and sometimes they won't be, but in the end, they're there watching you. So all you can do is learn from the mistake yourself, but don't define yourself by that mistake.
Antoine, I'm just going to go back to when you said you were growing up, and obviously at the school, certain children got diagnosed with dyslexia, but for you, for example, you never did. Because is that because your dyslexia, you reckon or think, may not be as severe as the other, or do you think because being black, and I thought, well, actually, does he have a dyslexia, or is he just? I don't even know whether you were disruptive in class or not, or is he just quiet, or what do you think that might have been?
I don't really talk for the teachers, so I don't really know why I wasn't diagnosed, but I was in the top sets in most of the school classes anyway, so I very much doubt that anyone in that class was diagnosed as dyslexia. So it might have been that case whereby they thought, well, he's doing okay, maybe he's just not as quick as anyone else, or whereby they've just it gotten unnoticed. But it could be, as you said as well. So I just don't know.
I mean, we've got the lovely Janet Morgan who's just joined us now, and Janet's question just popped up. Hello, Janet. Hello, Leslie. Hello, I think, Alton also joined us. Hello, Alton Kennedy, who's in London. Now, I think Janet put and obviously Heather has joined us as well. And I think Janet put a very good question there. I think Janet said, this is why we need more black teachers and black assessors. I couldn't agree more, to be honest with you. Yes, I do agree, because sometimes that helps too, than just maybe having the other and then things are not picked up so easily. I could use my example. When I was growing up at school with dyslexia, I was just told that I'm disruptive in class, and what's going on at home was the question that came up a lot. So, and then there's Joe Blogs, who also had dyslexia, but it was like, oh, Johnny needs a bit more help in that area. So it works differently for everybody, but I know that. And then obviously coming fast forward, what I do find difficult right now is a lot of people are diagnosed at university, but I've met a lot of black people that were just at uni and not maybe younger. You and I can't answer that. We don't know why. But hey, that's what's happening at the moment. But thank you so much for telling me a little bit about your background and finding about dyslexia. And of course, I've met people that have got dyslexia in the background, quite quiet, and just sitting there and wouldn't distract the class and then shape or form. And then you have me, who would be like, I want to do this. I'm not distracting the class. So for that reason, my one was like, look, send her to Miss Neil. So the head teacher's office is where I spent most of my time. Unfortunately, I left school with no qualifications. And of course, I went into the workplace, and at one point I had to re-educate myself. So if I hadn't gone to uni, I would have never known about dyslexia. But that's back in the 80s where they didn't pick up on dyslexia. But as she said, onwards and upwards and fast forward. We just got to go forward with what we've got now. And thank you so much.
Use the experiences that happen to us to help other people, like you are using your platform to help people who could have had the same experience as you, but through the work that you do is enable them to speak openly. As you can see from the comment section, people sharing their own experiences, and grateful to have a platform to hear other people talk about their experiences, so that essentially nobody really likes being alone or feeling like they're the only person that struggles, this way, because then it feels like it's all on you rather than actually it's a condition, and you learn practices and techniques how to deal with that condition. It doesn't define you as a person. It just means that you have to do things a little bit differently, and sometimes you have to work a little bit harder.
What's really interesting, Antoine, sometimes I get emails or phone calls and people would say, do Black people actually get dyslexia? And that's why I said there's enough representation out there of us talking about this condition openly. And I totally agree with you. Having a platform like ours, with you sharing your story and your journey, someone watching somewhere thinking, well, actually, I'm going to get into journalism, but how do I do that with dyslexia or specific learning? So I think it's a great platform. And, what's happened has happened and it's gone. We've got to go forward and move on now. Now, the great Heather said that this platform is very educative and empowering. Thank you, Heather. Thank you so much. Andrew Greenman, hi, thank you for organizing this talk. Hearing Antoine's school experiences resonate with my experience. Super important to give a platform for inspirational. Get the word out. Neurodiverse speakers, and this is really amazing. Now, the reason why I really enjoy watching you on TV, Antoine, I have a problem with pronunciation. So you saw that neuro, and then you got the two words to put together. How do you handle that so well on camera?
I don't handle it super well, because even today people were tweeting about my pronunciation of the word mural. So I'd have to go back and watch the report that was on today to see if they're actually correct. But sometimes it's not even your pronunciation. Sometimes we have accents that are different to the people that are on TV, so not used to certain words being said a certain way. Sometimes you just understand you're human. So what you may make a mistake. You may mumble a word sometimes, your dyslexia may kick in, so a sentence isn't the correct syntax or the same way that people are used to. But there's lots of people on TV who have different ways of speaking, and it's just taking your time to say what you want to say, how you want to say it. And some people will pick up on little mistakes, and other people will actually listen to what you're saying and care more about the message rather than one particular word that wasn't said in a way that they're used to hearing. But such is life. Like, you can't live by temporary mistakes or temporary failure, because essentially life keeps moving. So the praise or the hate you got yesterday, it's just a page in the history book. So you just can't live by it, and you just have to keep moving forward. And I think it's easy for me to say simply that's how I am as a person, but a lot of people carry the baggage of what people have said before about them in a backpack on their life, and it weighs them down, and eventually they become overcome by it. But you have to just literally look back, take the learning from it or the life lesson from it, and just move on from it, whether it's good or bad. Because even if you dwell on success, I learned this a long time ago, success is temporary as well as failure. You have to have continual success to really achieve anything. Like, if you did one show that was really well watched, you can't live off that one show. You have to get another guest, do another show, etc., etc. If I do one report that's received well, it doesn't define every other report that I do from that point onwards. It's just one report that's well. So congratulate yourself, but then move on. If you make a mistake, learn from it and then move on, because essentially time doesn't stop. It keeps on ticking forward. Only people will dwell in the past. And unless you're learning from it, it's just a waste of your time, really. You might as well accept what's happened and apologize if you need to, congratulate yourself if you need to, and then understand that tomorrow is a new day and there's more work to be done.
Thank you so much for that. And that's really amazing, that answer that you've given, which ties into, obviously, we're talking about how you manage your workload as a dyslexic working in broadcast. Now, there must be loads of writing, loads of like things you have to kind of try to remember. How do you do that in a nutshell? Just sort of very quickly on that one. How do you manage your work?
I think because I, like you said, I work in broadcast, which is different to, say, papers or press, whereby you're writing different articles every single day. In terms of what I do, I write a script for the report. So Antoine Allen ITV News will be at the end of it, whatever my top line is, however I'm describing the report, and then in between that's voiceover describing the next interview segment or whatever a person's about to see. So really, in terms of word count, it's not actually that high. Probably an average report is probably between 150, maybe 250 words. So it's not that much. It's mainly what you say on camera, what someone else says on camera, and everyone's different. So in a newsroom where I work, there's lots of people who do interviews and they'll write down on a piece of paper all of their questions. So they'll look down, they'll read their question, and that's how they do it. Whereas I never write my questions down. I just know what I'm going to say in my head. That's just the way I've done it, because I came from a background of just doing interviews all the time that were live. So I always think if you break eye contact with someone, then you lose them for a moment. So that in-depth interview that you could have had, you don't have anymore, because they've lost that focus. That's just the way I do things. Everybody's different. So you find techniques that work for yourself. I have to reread things over and over again. So if I type something out, specifically when it comes to the scripts, I type something out, I'll read it out loud, and it may not sound the way that I thought it was in my head. So again, I'll have to redo it. So I could be doing the voiceover, and if I haven't read it out loud before starting recording, I'm probably going to have to record that again. But that's just how it is sometimes. Sometimes you'll make those mistakes. You learn through simply repeated practices. You end up using similar sentences over and over again. And if you learn from the previous mistake you make, hopefully you won't make that same mistake again. Sometimes you'll come across a new word that you've only read before, but you've not said out loud. And I think that's probably one of the difficult things in terms of what I do, and just anyone in general. A lot of the time we read words, but we don't say them out loud. So we don't know how they're supposed to be said phonetically. Whereas other people, they're used to hearing people in their ear. So I always say that when it comes to parents, the best thing you can do is read to your children, simply because it enables them to pick up new words, to hear how words are said, and if you're showing them, also to see how they're read as well, rather than them just read by themselves, or even read to you but not understand that actually this is how you're supposed to pronounce that particular word, or this is how you're supposed to pace yourself. So example with me, I read quite fast when I'm reading out loud, but really I read too fast, because then my pronunciation crashes into each other sometimes. And it's just a mistake I have sometimes. It's something I'm working on, something I'm aware of. So bit by bit, I'm trying to do better at that. And even though social media can be a very mean place and people can send you mean tweets, at the same point, it just reminds you that you're not perfect and you still got work to be done. And the proof of you doing a good job is usually when no one tweets you. None of the bad people or the trolls or the hateful people or the racist people have anything to say. So they'll just move on to someone else. And hopefully the people that enjoy your work will also tweet you. So there's some people who especially specifically on Twitter, constantly tweet me, which is really nice. So it's good to get that positive feedback. But there's an analogy I always give from a book called Awareness by Anthony de Mello. And at the beginning of the book, so you don't even have to read all of the book. I think it might be on page 9 or something like that. He gives a story about a guy who's leading a discussion where he's giving advice to different people, and people are asking him for help. And one of the people in the discussion group says, John, my team leader never comes to my district to give me positive feedback. He goes everywhere else, but never comes to my district to let me know I'm doing a good job. So then John says, okay, I'll pretend to be your team leader. So you're going to be you and I'll be your team leader. I want to give you some good feedback. You're doing a great job. I love all the work you're doing. Continue doing it. We've got a lot of support for you. So then he asked her, as himself now, how do you feel? And she says, oh, I feel really good. I feel like the positive feedback has made me feel good about myself and I can continue doing a good job. So then he says, again, as the role play, okay, just say her name's Karen. Karen, can you go outside, please? And I'm still going to be me, but you can't hear what I'm saying now. So she literally leaves the room. She can't hear what's said in the room. So then again, continuing the role play, he says to all of the people in the discussion group, I don't like Karen. I don't like her district. I don't like going there. It drains my soul. That's why I never go there. We're looking to get rid of her eventually. So she comes back in and he says, Karen, how do you feel? And remember, she hasn't heard this conversation. She says, I still feel good. So the moral of the story really is you can't define yourself by what other people say to you simply because, one, they could be lying. Two, they could be telling you what you want to hear, or three, they could be telling the truth, but you have to have your own standards that you go by, that you learn from and you're trying to progress to, so that you don't live or die by someone else's opinion, because they could be telling you all kinds of stuff and the next day you're getting fired or you're made redundant. So you know the quality of your work, and you also know your faults. People can't use that against you. So no one can tweet me without me really already knowing that sometimes my pronunciation isn't great, but it's something I'm working on. Sometimes I do make mistakes when I read, but it's something I'm working on. But I know if I do an interview, I can interview anybody any given time, whether it's 1 minute or it's half an hour. It's easy for me. I know that some of my interviews have been watched by hundreds of thousands of people. I know that some of my reports have shined a light on really important topics. I know that lots of people have come to me with their stories and asked me to get them on TV in terms of something that's pertinent to the rest of society. I know that there's people that come up to me on the street and are grateful that there's someone like me on TV who they feel like represents them, even though I'm just me. I'm not a spokesperson for the community, but it does empower people sometimes to see someone who looks like them or speaks like them or's got the same disability as them, or same condition as them in a position whereby it looks like they're doing well for themselves at least. So in the end, you have to define how you're doing and how you want to do, and just be aware of what you're good at and what you can improve upon as well.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that. And it just brings me on by saying that when I first started A2I Dyslexia, I remember I was on benefits at the time, and I went into my Job Centre Plus, and there was a company that gives small grants for businesses to start up. And I remember my work coach kind of got me introduced to this young man. I forgot the name of the company that kind of worked with Job Centre Plus. And when I told him the idea of what I wanted to do, he said, how's that ever going to work? People are doing it already. You know, people are supporting dyslexics. You've got British Dyslexia Association, you've got Dyslexia Action, you've got this one, that one, this one. How is that ever going to work? But because I believed in what I was doing, and I believe that because there's no help or support locally for me, I just believed in it and I was running with it. I couldn't spell dyslexia, and I still can't spell dyslexia up to today. You know, really struggled to spell the word. But I still believed that the possibility that this organization will stand, because the focus and the vision was just to keep going. Like you said, I could have given up halfway and said, oh, this ain't gonna work. For 6 months, we had one client. For a year, we had about maybe 20 clients, but we weren't even generating income at that time. But I still believed in it because I knew that there's people out there that needed that help. One thing I did know, that I wasn't gonna go back to the corporate world because it was difficult for me working in corporate. You know, you've got targets, deadlines, you know, this to reach, that to reach. I wasn't meeting up to all that. So the message I'm trying to really say to people is, look, if you have got the strength, like Antoine said, maybe you want to use the strengths you've got rather than dwell in the weaknesses, which can really pull you down, you know, sometimes. So I just wanted to second what you said there. So thank you so much for the advice that you've given there. Just to my third question now. You are a true inspiration. And for many Black dyslexics, you may, who wants to get into TV? What steps did you take to become so successful? Now, I say you're a true inspiration person, Antoine, because you are. As much as maybe you're saying this, you're hyping me up too much. So what steps did you take to become so successful? I know you did your degree in another subject and then you switched, didn't you? Yeah.
Yeah, so First, you have to decide what you want to do, which for many people is a long process. You don't have to rush that, but you do kind of have to decide, this is where I want to go in life. At least have a field, whether it's the media. The media is a big place. So to be in the media, you could be a reporter, a presenter, a producer, a director. You can be a camera person. You can be a writer. You can be an editor. There's lots of different professions just in the word media, really and truly. So just decide at least an area and then do some investigation how you can get there. First and foremost, you need to get some kind of knowledge base. No, sorry, I don't even keep it real. The media can also include blogging and YouTubing. So maybe you don't want to work from someone else. Maybe you just want to be your own boss with your own camera and make your own product, and you put it out to the general public and hopefully people watch. But then you understand that's a process. Even if you're KSI, who probably has the most followers out of any black YouTuber in the UK anyway, and he's up there with the white YouTubers as well, he started on 0 subscribers, same as everyone else. So it's a process. I remember seeing old videos of KSI where he didn't have many followers, and now he's got millions, and he's making a lot of money, and he's living his dream, and he's probably one of the most influential people in the world simply based on the amount of followers he has and his ability to get them to do what he wants, whether it's buying tickets or watching him do something or watching him box when he's not a boxer, etc., etc. So first and foremost, try and decide what you want to do, whether it's in a certain area or it's simply something that you enjoy. Then it's believing in the path. Now, sometimes walking to any destination is like being in the forest where you don't know the path. There's not always a path that's already been tread for you. There's not always a map that you follow, but you got to find your way. But luckily, most of us follow career paths where someone's done it before us. So try and find who's done something, how they did it, read their autobiography if you have to, or contact citizens advice bureaus or job centers or career planners or life coaches or whoever it is who can give you some advice that might help you along your way. But like I said, if you don't know where you're going, someone's going to give you directions, and that direction could be the wrong way. So you have to find what works for you and what you enjoy. I always say there's generally 3 types of jobs. There's job A, whereby you do what you love most of the time, but it may not pay you enough money to do what you want to do in terms of hobbies and stuff at the weekend. And hopefully one day you'll earn enough money to be doing what you love and also be able to do other random stuff that you love that may cost more. Or there's job B, where you're in a job you don't really like in terms of it's not something you want to do your whole life. Like, without being disrespectful, not many people dream of being a banker. Do you know what I mean? It's not like you're a 5-year-old boy thinking, I want to work for HSBC one day. Eventually you decide you're good at numbers and that's what you do. But at the same point, if, I don't know, Arsenal was to knock on your door and give you a time machine for you to go back and be a footballer, you probably choose to be a footballer. But during that time, those Monday to Friday, you're earning enough money that Saturday and Sunday you can do what you like, or your holidays you do what you like, or you've got enough money that you're paying for your family or your friends and etc., all the stuff you want to do. Or you have job C, whereby you neither enjoy your 9 to 5 and you don't have enough money to do anything at the weekend. So you're basically spending 7 days of the week doing something you dislike, rather than job A, where you do 5 days of the week, you do something you like, and on the following 2 days, you're kind of struggling a little bit, or you're just not living the border life that you see on Instagram. Or job B, where for 5 days of the week, you're doing something you don't super love, but it earns you enough money that for 2 days of the week, you can do whatever you like and you can essentially buy the world. But most people are in job C. Most people are in a job whereby they neither like it or it earns them enough money to do what they want to do. That's the nature of capitalism, which is pretty sad. But even if you're in your job C, you can still work on yourself. YouTube is an amazing platform for you to be watching videos and learn how to do little things. You can start your own small business, even if it's just selling things on eBay or Etsy. or Amazon, even if it's just simply making YouTube videos, if it's just writing a blog. Like, don't let your 9 to 5 define you as a person. Don't let it define what you can be as a person. Don't let it define what you want to be as a person. Now, if you're in job A, then you're lucky. You're doing something you love anyway. But if you're in job C and you don't love what you do and it doesn't make you enough money, then find something that you do love. And it's easy for me to say because bills don't pay themselves. But during that time of you building someone else's dream, step back and think, if I was to die tomorrow, how happy would I be? Like, how much of a life would I have lived? Or am I just living to die? Or what am I doing to put some pages in my autobiography that I'd read and be excited to read? Yeah. So in life, when it comes to what you want to do, it's never easy. It's always a stock market whereby there'll be ups, there'll be downs, but you've got to last the course. You've got to keep going. So when it comes to being someone in the media as such, to answer your question, there's easier paths, like do a journalism degree. That's probably the easiest way. But then if you go to any journalism degree that's starting in September or October, there's lots of people on that course. So there's lots of people who are also trying to do what you want to do. So if you think the journalism degree itself is going to get you straight into the door, it's probably not. You're going to have to do work experience. You're going to have to do something off your own back. It could be blogging and YouTube and writing articles, contacting local papers, contacting local news organizations, moving. So in terms of me, I lived in Germany. Like 2018, I moved to Germany. My first full-time presenting job was in Germany. It wasn't in England. It wasn't a case whereby I was given an opportunity here. I had to literally leave the country to be given an opportunity. And my first international documentary, again, I left the country. I was in Germany. I made a documentary in Holland. So sometimes I always use this analogy. Sometimes where you're born isn't where you're supposed to grow. So just because you're born in London, or I'm from Northampton, or you're born in Newcastle or Leeds or New York or Kingston, Jamaica, or Ghana or Nigeria or South Africa or Paris, wherever you are, your talents and the opportunities afforded to you, or sorry, the opportunities that are great for you may not be in your vicinity. It may not be out the door. It may not be the next street. It may not be the next town. It may not be the next country, but there is a place where you can excel. And sometimes you have to be willing to sacrifice being comfortable where you are, like essentially the fish that decided to crawl onto land, like I'm trying to think of animals, but I'm not really that into the jungle, but whatever animal that left the jungle to move somewhere else, that's what you need to do. Like as simple as that. Like migration. Like when you watch an animal documentary with David Attenborough, birds migrate, elephants migrate. Like essentially we're still animals. Go where you need to go to make bread, to make food, to develop your career. And that simply could be leaving where you are. Like I'm West Indian, so my family's from the Windrush generation. My nan left Jamaica, my granddad left Jamaica, and they came here to build a better life for themselves. And just because you're here now doesn't mean you have to stay here. There's plenty of places in the world that you may excel better at than in the UK, or just simply your town. Like I'm from Northampton. I rarely go back to Northampton now. I wouldn't have a career if I stayed in Northampton. I had to come to London. Also, my university was in London. Half my family's from London, so it's a little bit different. But at the same point, every day people come to London. Every day people leave London and go to Leeds and Manchester and Liverpool and Newcastle and Durham and Wales and Scotland and Ireland. People go where they need to go. And sometimes we get trapped by comfortableness. Mm-hmm. We're comfortable where we are. We're comfortable with the people we know. We're comfortable with the shop that we know the closing times. We're comfortable in the job whereby everybody knows our name. And we only look for new jobs when we're going to be made redundant.
From instead the old one.
Constantly be thinking, well, is this the best place for me? Is there another opportunity waiting for me? Let me see what's out there. You should always be looking. Like always be looking. Because I'm from a freelance background. Like a freelance background is you've got one contract The next one may or may not come. So you're always looking for your next contract. During one contract, you're looking for your next contract. And that mentality, I think you have to keep. Now, if you get lucky enough, you can be in an organization that supports you and you probably want to stay for as long as possible. But studies have found that most people will not work in one job. Like the days of someone being in one job, so one organization their whole life, are getting shorter and shorter. So you've just got to keep going, keep finding and keep looking for your opportunities. And it's not easy. But
it's not, yeah, but it's achievable, isn't it? You can do it. And sorry to cut you short there, because I think coming out the comfort zone is really important, what you said, and I totally agree with you. Because for me, I had to keep going and I had to keep moving. I didn't change cities, but I had to keep knocking at doors. And I'm one of these people that no is really not for me. If you say no, actually that's not going to work, I wouldn't know why. You know, why can I not be given that opportunity? Imagine at the JCP, the Job Centre Plus, and I took this guy's word when he said, how's that going to work? Someone else is doing it. Imagine I thought, well, actually, it's not going to work, is it? And didn't pursue it. We wouldn't be where we are, serving our community and doing the amazing work that we are doing. So thank you so much for that advice. That is really awesome, the answer you gave there. Now, how do you think other people see the label of dyslexia and their perception as a TV presenter, newscaster? What's other people's perception of you having dyslexia, do you think? Would you think that is?
About it, people were very supportive. No one's going to attack someone who's got dyslexia. Really, if you're a growing adult, you're not really going to do that. Most fact that people don't know, they might do, which is just ignorance on them, really, because you can spend time attacking people, or you can spend time supporting them, giving them advice, or understanding that just because social media allows you to tweet someone or allows you to comment doesn't mean that you have to. Like, you just don't have to. I don't spend my time going on to people's pages and posting negative comments. It's only the lifestyle of someone who's got limited things going on in their life. So in terms of supporting me, specifically someone who's dyslexic, I got a lot of positive feedback. But then obviously when people don't know I'm dyslexic, I get some negative. But in the end, it's such as life. People are always going to give negative statements. Some people don't like my suits. Some people don't like my hair. Some people don't like my skin color. It doesn't matter, because if you like yourself,
that's what that matters.
It's a Bernie Mac quote, so I'm not going to try and make it out like I said it, but basically Bernie Mac said, either during an interview or maybe one of his sketches, but I can't remember, he said, essentially, people might not like you. They might not. But you know what matters? If you like you. If you can say, I like me, then that's all that matters.
That's all that matters. Thank you.
You do what you need to do. And then you build a confidence. Like if you build your confidence on the bedrock of other people's comments, as soon as they stop commenting, you're going to fall into the sea. If you build a bedrock on your own self-belief and your love for what you do or what you want to do or what you want to represent or who you want to represent or what you want to stand for or what you already stand for, then you can keep moving forward. And every so often, you'll check your own foundation and be like, am I living up to my own standards? If not, we start again, we restart, we reshape, and we keep moving forward.
Yeah, I just want to welcome the people that have just joined us now. So Alex in the studio can put some comments up. Janet Barrett said self-worth. That's I truly agree with you on that one. And there were a few comments coming through. Someone said boom dresser. I don't know what that means. Of course.
Even
boom dresser, of course. Yeah. And I actually think the way you present yourself, it resonates. I mean, you know, my son's got dreadlocks, and he's at one point he said to me, I don't think any office person would ever employ me, but he works for himself and he's got his locks and he rocks it really well. When he was going for a couple of interviews and it didn't work out for him. It might have been whatever reason, but he's now working for himself and he can wear his hair anyhow he wants to. I think there was another message that just come on, and Alex might have, if we can see that message again. So Janet said, we shop in different shops, places to get the best price for products. Why not take the aspect in all things? And I think she's absolutely right. Now, just before we go, because we've got about a minute and a bit to go, what is the promise of dyslexia? What does the future hold for us as dyslexics, do you think?
I think there's more awareness. There's more people speaking out. There's more people who can be role models. There's more knowledge based around it. There's more discussion. But at the same point, I did read an article that was saying that due to the lockdown, there may be 70% of people that, not even people, sorry, 70% of children that might not be diagnosed. So they may struggle. But at the same point, there's lots of different things that can help you, even if you're not diagnosed, you just improve. So you and I didn't grow up in the era of apps in YouTube, whereas these children, these students can use that. They can spend their time watching lots of educational people if they want. It's up to parents, though, to sit them down to say, well, if you want to watch the fun stuff, you want to learn the latest dance, that's all good. But you need to also do what I call the bread and butter. So if you view all knowledge as food, so you open your fridge, which is essentially your library of knowledge, and you have a cake. So a cake would be a cartoon or a dance or something that's fun, it's instant. You straight away, you get some kind of instant gratification. It gives you some energy, but it doesn't last unless you want to actually be a dancer, but that's beside the point. And then you have an apple, or you have dinner that's more hardy, it takes longer to eat, but it sustains you and it builds your muscles and it builds your mind. That's what knowledge is in terms of educational content. Now, if you live off just sweets, you live off just things that give you instant gratification, just like sweets, they may eventually rot your mind or give you some kind of diabetes, simply because you're only getting things that constantly make you feel good, but actually doesn't grow you as a person. Sometimes you can just sit down and have that fruit or have that dinner that actually builds you. And lucky enough, even during the lockdown, you've got discussions like we're having now. There's lots of YouTube videos. You've got Apple books. You've got Amazon books, which some of them are free. So if you've got a Kindle, or you just download the app, there's books on there that are free now. Like there was no free books when I was growing up. So there's lots of things children can do, students can do, adults can do to up their learning. And also something that people don't realize, you can literally do a Harvard course for free. So you're not going to have Harvard, Yale, lots of them have different free courses. They were just offered over the lockdown. And even now there's lots of free courses. It's not like you get a degree at the end of it. Sometimes you do get a certificate, but there's little courses you can do in random subjects that you might not have thought anything about. But if you scroll through their website, something might catch your interest. And simply because you're doing that course, it might take your life in a whole different area, or simply you've got a new knowledge base. So there's a good quote from, what's his name? There's a guy, anyway, there's a motivational speaker. And he basically said, when two surgeons go to apply for a job, they can both do it. Like, it's very rare someone's going to apply to be a surgeon who isn't a qualified surgeon. So when it comes to the hospital, choosing between those surgeons, they're choosing personality. They're choosing whoever they like. Obviously, some might be more qualified than us, but they're roughly the same qualifications. So during that interview, it's not so much, this is what I can do for brain surgery. It's how is that person developed? What will they bring to the hospital? What's their energy? What's their personality? And that's why you have to build yourself, not just defined by your job, but also become rounded through reading and listening and watching lots of different topics. So you can have a conversation. And to go back to your previous comment in terms of pronunciation, the more people you talk to, the better your pronunciation will become. So the more people you have a discussion with, the more you think about what you're going to say, and it develops over time, and bit by bit you become better. So the word that you struggled at before, you say it 3 or 4 times and it becomes second nature to you. So you have to have those conversations. You have to build those networks. You have to talk to new people as much as possible, and you have to listen to new people.
Absolutely. Antoine, it's been absolutely amazing having you on Dyslexia, A2I Dyslexia Live Show. I just want to say thank you very much. Thank you for the advice. Thank you for your time. Thank you for everything you do, and carry on, going higher and higher and higher in your career that you do. Because I'm sure there's so many young people, particularly Black boys or Black men, that would probably look up to what you're doing, and all the younger Black boys, I think, rather, and say, look, I want to aspire to be. And this is why it's really important that representation is actually out there. And I want to say thank you. Thank you to our viewers for joining us this evening. Thank you to everyone who's made this show possible. And yeah, it brings us to the end of our show. and keep looking after yourself, and see you on Good Morning Breakfast tomorrow. Yes. Well, I will be. I'll see you tomorrow. Yeah. And obviously your Twitter handles and everything. If we can have those at some point.
Antoine Speaker, I've just put it onto the screen. So at Antoine Speaker on Twitter and Instagram. So if you could follow me, I just quickly want to make the statement. We kind of do need to follow people who are in the media representing us a little bit better than we do, not just the sports people, not just the comedians, not just the musicians, simply because the world we live in, followers do count. But also in terms of my perspective as someone that makes reports, if I make a report about our community or any community, the more people that can click share, the more people that can engage with it, it means it reaches a wider audience, and it just helps more people, and it makes those stories bigger. So if you can, please follow me.
We will do.
Tell your friends to follow me. But yeah, thank you for your time. Thank you for inviting me on the show.
And Antoine, you're phenomenal. You're amazing, and keep doing the work you're doing. Fantastic. Lovely to speak to you. So next week, we're not here next week, by the way. It's bank holiday. So I'll probably be out somewhere having a barbecue with only 6 people that are allowed, hopefully. Look after yourself, everybody. Take care, and see you in 2 weeks' time. On the 7th of September, we've got an amazing lady who's coming on the show to talk about cultural perspective of dyslexia from growing up in Japan. So here we are. Thank you, everybody, and see you soon. And Antoine, look after yourself. Thank you so much. Yeah. Take care now, everyone. Bye for now.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.